I wish I had learned this truth many years ago. Be thankful for the days, good and bad.
All right, we're here with another episode of Warrior versus Zombie, and I've got a great friend, an amazing warrior to talk to you about. But first, let me remind you about Warrior versus Zombie. Success is a journey, it's not a destination. As warriors, we all have our ups and downs, wins and losses that are all really part of making us who we are up to this point and providing a foundation for our path forward. We all battle our inner zombie as well as those zombies in our world. In each episode, I interview warriors from all walks of life, aspiring leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, business owners, really any inspired leader that has a story to tell. And these warriors have a cause, they have a unique value and vision that goes generations into the future. And today's guest is absolutely no exception. Jena Apgar is an incredible warrior. She's a mom, business owner, an entrepreneur, marketing strategist, really committed to providing tools to enable entrepreneurs and business owners to build their business. Known as the Lean Queen, Jena helps these warriors achieve systematic, scalable growth for their businesses so they can invest their time in living their ideal day. Through her tools, podcasts, training, consulting, and agency services, Jena helps owners and freelancers on their path from survival to exit. Her guidance, tools, and action steps get warriors from where they are to where they want to be. During her over 24-year warrior journey, sounds like a lot until you hear that mine's been 50, but anyway, she's
we're getting there.
Just older. We could talk about that too. In sales, marketing, military, combat to agency, she's been featured in 17 CosmoGirl international speakers. She has shared the stage with Gary Vaynerchuk, Deiss, Richard Branson, and really many more. So Jena, welcome to Warrior versus Zombie. I can't believe it took me 41 episodes before you and I got on this podcast together, but how are you doing today with all your craziness?
Hey, well, it's glad to get to be on the podcast finally. I figured as much as we work together, it was good to kind of watch the evolution of your podcast and kind of sit back for once and not be part of it. I was so we used to work so much together. So getting 4 kids off to where they need to be this morning is always fun. And then not skipping the morning workout, even when I'm running behind. So always a good morning. Good morning, good start.
Yeah, I was thinking about you this morning as I was hiking from Richardson over across the Dallas Metroplex over into the Fort Worth area with my 2-year-old, 5-year-old, and 6-year-old granddaughters that are living with me for the next few days and going to school and doing all that stuff. And I thought, wow, I remember what this was like when I had 5 kids, although at that point I was traveling a lot and didn't have a lot of the chauffeur services to do, so I got to experience that. I'm sure you're doing it all. I know, like my daughter is, I'm constantly amazed that I ever had the energy to do the things that I see her doing, and I'm sure you're kind of the same way as that mom trying to juggle business and make sure the kids are taken care of, obviously not necessarily in that order.
It's all about systems.
So
systems and creating like a regular way that you do things every single day, and then not being too upset when things go awkward.
When they go off the rails, right? You just gotta try and get it back on the rails as soon as possible, but just try and keep moving.
Operational risk management, step in and try to foresee any potential issues before they come up so they don't come up. Move along when things do. When you get like the crazy stuff like recessions or COVID or blown out diapers, make do.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating because I'm doing a mastermind series on planning that we're going to be talking about. And one of the key things is flexibility, right? I mean, you got to have a plan to start with, but you can never be married to it. And it's kind of the parenthood, especially at the stage that you're at. And I know your stage, you actually, I was thinking about this today. You have actually a broader spectrum. My oldest is 39 and my youngest is 26. That's a 13-year spread.
I've got 20
I think
years
your
spread.
oldest is, what, 18?
20.
Dealing with the whole parenthood or grandparenthood or stages of life thing, that a bigger spread than me, and you happen to be one of those. I'll watch you and see what I can learn from that.
Extra set of adults.
So anything else you want to check in with, and we'll come back. Actually, what we're going to do is we'll take a quick break. I want to really, Jena, you've got such a fascinating story, and I'm not sure how much of it or what parts you want to share, but starting at a very early age in the military, and then some decisions that you kind of made through your life, some zombies, as I say, you've overcome along the way. I think a lot of things we can learn, our warriors can learn from your experience and your story. And then after that, we'll take a break and then we'll talk about where you are today. So let's take a quick break, hear a little bit of Ricky Jean Wright, and It's Not the Getting There, our theme song for the podcast. For those listening on the audio audience, if you're here with us live, you'll hear a break, but you won't hear the music. So let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with Warrior versus Zombie and Jena Apgar.
But the miles become the teacher while the student learns real slow, traveling blind most of the time. Wherever you go, it's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to...
All right, we're back. And
That
Jena,
was the quickest ever.
I love the check-in. And yeah, when we're doing it live, it's kind of like, okay, I didn't hear any music. No, but so as I said before, we took a break, or we took a pause for the live audience. Tell us a little bit about how you got from wherever you started, and you can start wherever you choose.
Yeah, so I feel like that's always one where you have to you have to pick a point, right? And people ask it, and I've been through so much. Like, I'm not quite as experienced as you, but I have so many stories. I'm that person that starts talking. Everyone's like, "Could you just write a book already? Like, you've got enough stories." But I had an outstanding dad. That was probably by far the most thing. He's got a good head on his shoulders. Retired military, still works with NATO in the Joint Flight Program. But I've been raising kids since I was 6. So being left alone for 3 hours with a newborn at age 6, and by the point I was 12, and my mother had my little sister, she was completely checked out, part of the opioid epidemic, getting prescriptions from car wrecks and then devolving from there. So waking up in the middle of the night with kids. I've done the high school parent. So my first one is 20, had her my senior year, and as everyone's freaking out and trying to push me to abortions, having to look at my own situation and be like, a baby's nothing. It's no different having a kid in high school than it is a working mom. So I can do this. Had my beautiful baby girl. And if you want to talk about zombies, I feel like that's probably the first moment. I can't obviously speak for all women, but something about when you get pregnant, you kind of feel like you wake up and you're all the BS or the gossip or the garbage in your day-to-day life that doesn't matter. You just stop caring about, and you look around and you're like, what's the fluff? And then that just disappears, and people gossip, and you look at their face and you're like, I don't care at all. Go away. Did join the military because that was kind of part of looking around. I wanted to be a lawyer for a long time. Majored in essentially marketing in high school and didn't know where I wanted to be, and had a lot of problems to solve, and going into the military specifically into Intel, where I would get an amazing training experience and get some time to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, which I probably still haven't done yet, but do it with some intention. Not just going to college, spending a bunch of money, and deciding to change majors 5 times. I guess when you pay for college, it's a little different. Can't just spend dad's money. It's not the same. Military was awesome. But at some point, watching, I can remember a specific moment So you want to talk about another zombie wake up, staring at a video with an MC-130 gunship shooting what we're calling enemy combatants. And people are giggling in the background and, get them, get some. And some of you'll see it in movies too. And I'm looking at these shadows and you're saying, so that's someone's son, that's someone's brother, that's someone's father. And every day they wake up and they know that they're the good guy in their story. And that's well supported as we're bombing their home and taking away their leaders. And we're over here laughing about it. And they're just seeing something really intrinsically wrong with that. And I'm sure psychologists could break it down and, this is how we are coping mechanisms and all that, but realize that just wasn't going to work anymore. And kind of from that point, just being intentional in life, going through college, doing a 180 into art school and interior design and architecture and, hitting the recession and jobs are gone. My industry goes from, being really flush with life and, losing 80% of its people all in, a couple of years span and turning around and pivoting again as my boss grabbed my shoulders and she was like, Jena, you were never meant to be here. You're too smart for this. Go do something else. Doing the stay-at-home mom and at some point having a pivot again and being like, this no longer works. Let's pivot. And somehow falling into marketing and combining all those different life experiences into being a strategist. Because when you've been through so much and you've seen so many different, the world just go through so much. One of the greatest things that you can do is just look at it and see the bigger picture and see the smaller pieces and how they work together and help businesses in this case put that together.
So in terms of, getting to where you are today, that and those things that are outside your control, and one of the things that I always enjoy is hearing the warriors, they don't choose to dwell on the challenge. They keep moving forward. As you moved into the marketing space, let's bring you kind of up to today, because I know there's intersections we've had along the way with Business Growth Network. We're both, kind of in the early stages of, which, by the way, Be Connected is the platform we're on as far as this live show. But we both are early on. It's still an early adopter platform. But tell me how. What kinds of things have you overcome, let's say, in the last few years, challenges?
As we're sitting here, still in the middle of a pandemic, losing 1,800 people a day. Wow, that's a huge one. So the last 2 years have been a lot of changes, and the big one being early on in the 2-year time span, went through a divorce, which needed to happen, and then struggling. You get hit by COVID, so as soon as you're wrapping up your business, and that's kind of important after a divorce, both for your mental and financial well-being, getting slammed by COVID, watching clients perish, going out of business, and there's nothing you can do about it, and the government is literally regulating who can be open and who can win and who's going to lose. And logically speaking, their choices make no sense whatsoever. Watching so much go wrong in the process, and, pivoting to, sewing, I don't know how many masks we made, 3,000 by hand, an assembly line of 2 teenagers and myself. And I'm trying to have to source elastic from China and the UK, and creating new designs that are not available to meet the needs of ICU and emergency room nurses, which is still just crazy to me that in America we can bomb every man, woman, and child on the planet, but we can't give them a safe mask to wear in a hospital, not even on a civilian side, on the hospital side. Getting pregnant, obviously 20 years after my first, and welcoming a new life and going through those changes, and simultaneously deciding again, what kind of business do I want to be operating that's not just going to be successful financially, but that's going to work around my life the way it is today and be of the most service to my knowledge base, to the most people, and still support the vision, the bigger visions that I have the best, if that makes sense. So as far as changes, I mean, I think anybody who had a 5-year plan, a 1-year plan, 10-year, 20-year plan 2 years ago, I'm pretty positive everyone lost that fantasy football life bet. Like, if somebody got it right, I have some more questions. I want to know your involvement.
Well, there were winners and there are losers.
Definitely.
And every time a major inflection occurs or has occurred in my life, and every time I've seen people go through, myself and others go through major change, again, there's always with big challenge comes big opportunity. Mm-hmm. It's just knowing which way to go. But the thing that I admire about you and warriors like you is the fact that you still continue to look forward, and you're dealing with the things, you have an opinion. I have an opinion about decisions that are made, things that are going on that are outside of my control, the zombie apocalypse or the pandemic, as you stated, and a lot of the things that you choose to focus on drive your feelings and therefore the actions you take. But warriors tend to step out of that.
You have to. I think I remember sitting in traffic and conversion, which just wrapped up literally, I believe, today in San Diego. I don't know. I think I was sitting there like 3 years ago, something, in one of like 6 talks from Dean Graziosi. I'm not quite sure how to say his name. I hope I didn't butcher it too badly. Oddly enough, it wasn't in the packed room. It wasn't on the main stage. Most people weren't interested in it because, it didn't have like a grandiose title of how to make $1 billion in 3 days. But it seemed to be the most real, and you could see it in his eyes. He was the most passionate about this one. It was the most, intimate kind of situation he was in from the stage and the people who were watching him. And one of the things that he said, like, I'm a news junkie because I used to be part of the news, right? I used to be on the top secret side of things, really watching how these things unfold on a different side, like way more than the civilian population, with people yelling at me to give them good news. And he was like, I haven't read the news in 10 years. And so, kind of breaking that addiction to the news, because there's almost never anything positive, nothing of, you're not reading the news and you have a feel good day because of it. It's usually heartbreaking. So I try to stay as much out of it as possible. I'll do like the Drudge Report and read the headlines just so I'm competent, can speak in, public settings, but you've got to step out of it at some point. Like, it's good. Like, obviously you need to know the pandemic's happening and you need to know some basic changes, maybe some local news for what's going on. But in the bigger scheme of things, it's really distracting you because it's not your business. And I don't mean like business as a job, but like there's nothing you can do about so much of it. So, if you can make changes, that's great. But if you're not in a position to make the changes, to make that negative energy go away, it's just not serving you. It's not serving your family. It's not serving your community. So you have to realize what affects you and where you can help. There was a time where that was something I could do something with, but at this point in time, it's not my job. It's not my vision. It's not my mission.
And that's a beautiful place to stop, because I do want to get into your vision and your mission as we go into the next segment. And it's been a great story. I know there's so much more we could hear about your story and so many more zombies. We may have to come back and hear some more. But for now, let's take a quick break. Let's come back and we'll hear about where you are today, why you're doing what you're doing, the value you provide, and if anything were possible, what kind of impact would you have? And we'll be back with Jena Apgar and Warrior versus Zombie here in the next clip of It's Not the Getting There.
It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. Funny how wisdom and youth.
All right, we're back. Another quick break. And Jena, so we're to today. Let's, even though I know we didn't cover every possible thing we could talk about, because we could talk forever. But let's talk about where you are today. And I'm interested to hear that because, frankly, we've just kind of reconnected and re-engaged and where you're.
Been a bit.
Why you're doing what you're doing, the value you see yourself providing, and if anything were possible, what kind of impact would you have?
Absolutely. Big pivots. Unfortunately, we lost a lot of clients as far as my agency work went with COVID, and some went out of business. Some just are still keeping expenses as trim as possible as they try to figure out what's going on. But more than that, I mean, I remember I had my college boyfriend telling me one time the best job to have, the best business model, right, was one where something like a software that you could just make once and ship some CDs out like AOL and sell the same thing over and over and over again, having only to do the work once, right? And so as I looked as an agency owner and I was trying to buy a different type of Christmas gift for my kids this past Christmas, instead of giving them toys that were going to sit around or, be junk in 3 months that they weren't even going to look at, we went shopping for applications for them. So they could actually own their own software. So not just buying the access, the license to use it, but to own it on an iPhone or an iPad. And happened to stumble across one that was right along with the agency software that I wish I would have had 5 years ago. Software that went along with the exact sales process that we were going through, and took a look at it and kind of, did a lot of due diligence from where these guys were, why they created it, what is the quality of the code. Figured out that they were maybe not the most ethical. It was essentially a pump and dump scheme where they built up an app and they turned around and sell it as much as possible, take $250,000 worth of profit out of it, split it with affiliates, and then basically dump it in about 2 years, leaving the clients high and dry. And they'll make another one. They'll copy the code over and sell it as a new brand, add a few more features, and pump and dump it again, and pump it and dump it again. And I kind of looked at, was it worth keeping? I'm positive that the clients were worth keeping. And that's certainly one of the strategies that I've gotten from one of my mentors, Roland Frazier, is, pick those companies up for the customers that you're going to acquire. But we took that, it's called LeadFlow, and we rebranded it to LeadFlow 365. More in line with our brands, getting new leads, consistent leads, 365 days a year. And taking that project on as a software application, both as a lead generator, kind of based on some studies from Anil Patel and others in my industry, and knowing that I could serve those people and teach them how to do what I've been doing, and even do it better than me. But, taking the existing model that they're using and, also training them how to step into a new model where they're not depending on referrals, but every day that they can make an intentional effort to get new clients and to reach out. And the first thing I noticed immediately was, the software is great, but there's still training that's necessary. Most of these people are coming in and they don't even have the background in the agency to do the work. So that we had the greatest ability to create a software that would not only help agencies in the existing moment that we could turn around and sell to people on a broader market, but that we could also look at expanding its usage later. And that I could, as part of my greater vision, one of the things that's important to me is stepping out of, marriages that, had spousal abuse or, drugs and alcohol issues. I see women all the time who they're scared to leave their zombie space. They're scared to step out and be on their own because they're afraid they won't be able to make enough money. And they put up with some terrible things because they're afraid. And what kind of business model could you create for a woman and man, but my vision's my vision, that they could step in and make money in 30 days in something brand new and do it with a lifestyle that centers around children. So obviously with children, you only got so much time in the day, and sometimes you have interruptions and you may not be able to leave the house. So ultimate vision and goal there is to take a software and create a model for anybody to make money consistently.
That's a great vision, and I'll tell you, that is awesome. I know there's a lot of moms out there, not just moms. I mean, there's a lot of parents out there that find themselves through the changes that have occurred having to be at home, needing to be at home to ensure that their kids stay on their journey, which is a very high priority, being able to be there. And so going into an office, being under somebody else's control and not having control yourself for whatever reason is a very powerful value proposition, and having a vision to get that out there for all those folks. Well, I probably understand enough to be dangerous about what you're doing at this point, but I do want to land the plane, if you will, for this segment. Hear a little bit more of Ricky Jean Wright. And then what I'd like for you to do when we come back is just tell the audience, based upon your story, the things you've learned along the way, and you've compressed a lot into a very small number of years of your life, relatively speaking, because I'm probably close to have you doubled here. And but you've learned a lot of things that I find are very valuable to warriors from all walks of life. But I'd like to hear, what are the one or two things or three things that you'd like to make sure that warriors listening to this podcast take away, and then I want to make sure they know how to stay in touch. So let's take another quick break, or after we hear a little bit from Jean Wright.
Funny how wisdom and youth are always two different games. The years flew by so fast is the common human complaint. The memories in our minds turn to diamonds in our soul, and by the grace of God, on down the road we go.
All right, we're back, and we're in the land the plane segment, as I say. And Jena, before the quick break, I said, tell me what you'd like to make sure that the warriors listening to us are going to take away from this podcast. So what would that be?
Man, like in the big scheme of things, there's so many things. I think the biggest thing that I've ever seen that I see the most people struggle with is an inability to change, even when it's in their best interest. And that really comes down to risk and fear, right? You have to take on some risk and you have to overcome sometimes a lot of fear. So if you have all of the logical reasons to make a change, I would just say make those changes. Like, go out of your way to do something that makes you afraid or uncomfortable or anxious every single day. So a lot of, like for example, my software, it's about getting new B2B business leads cold, right? Most people don't even like pitching hot leads, which is amazing to me. But the money in the world is in risk and sales, making things happen and things move and doing the things that everyone else is afraid of. So whether it's speaking in front of people, or if it's having that conversation with your dad that you've never had, or it's going to hang out with friends, or I have a good friend of mine who literally lives right across the street from me, who to some extent didn't even want to drive with her baby in the car because she was afraid that the baby in the back seat might suffocate at 6 months old. Just do the things that make you afraid, logically speaking, every single day, to create a mental toughness that when those things that are outside of your control happen, the big things, the COVID, the recessions, the parent dies, or these terrible things, that you can make the decisions necessary at the speed necessary to stay on top of your own game and your own life.
Well, that's a powerful lesson and a takeaway, because as we all know, those of us and warriors, we always continue to move forward, but there's no growth that occurs within our comfort zone, right? I mean, doing the same things, even if they're good things, the growth comes from pushing beyond the boundaries of our comfort. In fact, I always say that the biggest obstacle to success is comfort. It's basically, I stay where I'm comfortable. And you can get really comfortable in very uncomfortable situations, as you pointed out in your story. And that's interestingly enough, we're seeing that in spades. I see people today, and again, anybody that doesn't take the virus seriously is a fool. Because I've seen the worst of it. I've seen death. I've seen things like that. I want to say that. But I also want to say that anybody that chooses to focus on the possibility, and that's their total focus, and they drive down the road in a car by themselves with a mask on, or they're walking outside with nobody around with a mask on. And I'm not dissing them. I'm just saying your focus needs to shift. That's a very uncomfortable place to be. It's not even, there's some, studies, it's not even that healthy. So really, but that's just a kind of a metaphor towards really what you said, which is in your business, maybe a lot of the things that we've done up to this point need to be jettisoned or need to be substantially changed, or maybe we need to embrace something totally new, and those are all outside our comfort zone. So that's an amazing lesson that every warrior, I think, inherently knows, but maybe needs to be reminded of. So thank you for sharing that with us, because I think that's a great reminder. Anything else you think we should take away, or do you want to tell us how we can stay in touch with you?
I feel like that was a big one. I don't want to mess with it. Let's not distract from it. I'm easy to find when you Google my name, Jena Apgar. By far, I'd say go find me on LinkedIn, but I'm never there. So find me on Facebook, and I'm pretty good at answering all my messages. Just be positive and don't be afraid to ask questions. I went to my not family reunion, 20th high school reunion, and somebody was like, I'm so afraid to ask you marketing questions because I'm so not on your level. And I'm just like, hold up. One, I know you, we're friends. Just ask. There's no stupid questions. The stupid question is not asking a question. Well,
you and I have a common acquaintance in a guy by the name of Randy Sablik, and he's also been a guest on this podcast and become a good friend of mine. And I always say he doesn't know the answers, but he knows all the questions to ask. And sometimes just asking a question that sometimes the ones that seem the most obvious or seem like, well, this is really a dumb question. Sometimes they're questions that we've blown by and maybe can help us fill in a gap. So that's a beautiful thing. So basically,
you got the known knowns, unknown, or known unknowns, but the scary ones are those unknown unknowns. And sometimes just asking a question of a different person, they'll help you identify those unknown unknowns, which from a military standpoint, those are terrifying.
Yeah, I often said that it wasn't the things that I didn't know that were killing me, it was the things that I thought I knew that weren't true because I didn't know what I didn't know. And a lot of those things are scary. So, well, this has been great. And I know we're going to do this again at some point. And I'm glad you're back in the saddle from a business standpoint and also on this podcast. And motherhood is working well for you here, and you're balancing everything at least as best you can on a day-to-day basis. We all have a plan, and then God laughs, and then you have to be flexible and execute the daily activities. So get in touch with you on obviously Be Connected. You got Be Connected in your background. You're on Be Connected. You're on the other social platforms. Predominantly, you can find Jena, because Apgar, APGAR, is not that common, so you can find Jena Apgar out there just doing a Google search. But if you want to really reach out to her, just connect with her on LinkedIn and then have a one-to-one and ask all the dumb questions about marketing or whatever you want. How did she make it from where she started to today? But anyway, it's been great. Jena, thank you very much for sharing with our audience. I've loved having you here, and we'll definitely have to continue on our journey together of quite a few years now, about 8 years, I think. So anyway, let's hear a final segment. We'll be back next week, next Thursday at 11 o'clock, and we'll hear it with another warrior. And let's hear a final segment of Ricky Jean Wright, and It's Not the Getting There. And we'll be back next week with Warrior versus Zombie.
It's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there you'll know. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there, you'll know.